Welcome to the Tough Fish Show. I am so excited to bring to you Christina Dankert. Christina, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited that you're here, and I would love for you to start with how'd you get into writing?
Sure. So I don't have that story that some writers have of when I was a little girl, I dreamed of being a writer. I have always loved books and I have always loved writing, but I am first and foremost an elementary teacher. And I had a dream when I was, finishing up my undergrad. I'm like, oh my gosh, I would love to write a children's book. And I spent a lot of time in the library on campus on the children. They had a whole children's floor. And I thought one day I want my book to be in here. At that point, like 15 years ago, I didn't know what the topic was going to be. But I knew I wanted to write a book. And then after I had my own children and, after 11 years of teaching, I thought, all right, we need to write a book on kindness. And the rest is history.
So a couple of things you've said, I think, are just super sweet and super cool. So first off, the vision, if you will, came to you, and you were in a space where I want to write a book. I want it to be here, kind of thing. So you had that idea, you had that vision in mind. But what was it specifically about wanting to write a children's book?
I think because I have an early childhood degree, the amount of books that we were encouraged to read throughout that college process was very inspiring. And the range of books was like, oh my gosh, there's so many great books out there. And then, as soon as you enter your career, I was a kindergarten teacher and I've been in second grade now for a while. And then you have your own children. I can't go anywhere where there aren't picture books near me. And so I think the more you read, the more ideas you get, and the more that that became really important to me. Like, I don't see a novel in my future or a romance or a mystery. I love reading that. But as far as writing, what was the message that I wanted to put out into the world had to be children picture book form.
So to your point about the message that you chose for this book is about kindness. So would you talk about how this book came to be then? Because I love the fact that your interest that started with wanting to teach. So you have the exposure and the interest in the relatability to a young reader, but yet you still focused on creating a book, creating something of service for this young person. And the first thing is kindness. I love that. Would you talk about it?
Sure. So I wish I remember what I was doing, but it was about 5 years ago that the book title, which is The Kindness Machine, came to mind. I have no idea what I was doing, but I know the very next day I went out and I bought a little notebook and I wrote The Kindness Machine. And for a while, that's all that it was. It just lived as the title. And then for a few years, I would add, maybe this is a potential character, or this could be a concept, but it was really just bare bone notes. And I think too, as a teacher, you have to really think about the books that you are reading aloud to your class. Is it going with a concept that you're teaching in social studies? Is it going with a math concept? Is it just funny and fun so that kids fall in love with reading? You have to decide. So that when I was really thinking about kindness, I thought this could be a book that parents, teachers, counselors, grandparents grab because it's teaching a message, and it's also allowing a parent or whoever the reader is to have that cozy time with a class or with a child. And then hopefully you walk away with a positive message, then cherry on top.
Well, to your point, I mean, the way I think of, like you, I've published picture books as well. And when I think about that message behind it, yes, so mine are fun, but what you just described, that time together when that book is in their hand, or that the person who's reading to the younger one or the little one is learning to read and reading back. I look at that as a gift of love and time and attention. And the book is just helping to facilitate that time and something to kind of be a part of, but it's facilitating love, a love of reading, but maybe a love of the topic, but love and time together. And that's what I hear what you've created with. What was the intent with this?
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's a book by Donalyn Miller called The Book Whisperer, and it's really talking to teachers about how to teach children. And as parents, she makes a really great point of, we think of reading to our kids when they're, firstborn and 1 and 2 and 3, but then we tend to phase it out when, oh, they can read it. Where really it doesn't have anything to do with what they can read, it's that time together. And I know, in our own home, even if we have a crazy night or, we have a sporting event or something that's off schedule, reading time, it's every single night. And it's the calm, calm after the storm sometimes, where it just allows you to slow down and just kind of enjoy some time together. So.
Oh, okay. I love all of this so much. And the fact, again, going back to the fact that you have the experience, the education with early childhood. So, and that's where you had been teaching, you were able to make sure that this book could resonate with your target reader. So, but did you work with, I'm going to affectionately use the term beta readers, meaning that, like little ones to help read, or even adults? Because even when you're thinking about a picture book, there's really kind of two different audiences we're talking about. We're talking about the young reader, the child who's actually reading this book, and the adult who is the buyer, who is the client in this, or the customer, and the client is the child. But the adult who's choosing to get this book, choosing to read, you still want it to appeal to them too. So how did you navigate making sure you were appealing to both audiences?
It's so funny because I didn't know that term beta reader when I was doing it. I had not heard that until after I had several of my teaching friends read it and said, what do you think about this as a read aloud? You've read so many picture books. What do you think? So they helped me. A counselor who I have such great respect for, she read it and helped. But my son was so funny because I was working on the book, and a lot of times I'd be writing at night, and he was stalling and didn't want to go to bed. And so he would come in and say, all right, what part did you add now? And he wanted to know what was next. And it was so funny to me because, well, what do you think should be next? Or do you like that part? So that, I think I had the help with, him and a few other younger children to read it and really listen to what they were saying and kind of saw what they got excited about. So I think that, as writers, you want to have a story that doesn't need any editing and it's perfect just the way it is. And it's not realistic. And I think if you have people in your court that are saying, I would absolutely love to listen or to love to read that, and then provide feedback. It's not criticizing your work. They want to help you make it better. And I found that part of the process remarkably helpful.
I love that. So what you're alluded to are things as a theme that has come through in this show before, which is basically it takes a village to bring a book to life. Sometimes it's an editor or a couple of editors. It could be a graphic designer, but in this case, there's also an illustrator coming into play to help take the words and make them a bit more relatable for a younger reader, because we're talking a picture book. So what was it like working with your illustrator and figuring out what kind of illustrations you wanted? Because you can have something that looks like Madeline and something that looks like Pete the cat. They're both illustrations, but they're different look and feel. So what was that like, creating this village with the illustrations?
So the illustrator is my husband, Chad, which is extremely special. And again, years ago, when I said, someday I want to write a picture book, I said, oh my gosh, you should be the illustrator. He has a fine arts degree. He's worked in graphic design and film. And he said, yeah, okay, we could do that sometime. And then 2020, one of our family silver linings was that I actually stepped away from the classroom for a year. And in the time that I would be spending lesson planning and grading, I was writing. And we had the opportunity to submit not only the manuscript, but 2 sample illustrations to who picked us up for publishing, which is Purple Butterfly Press. And when they said, we love the manuscript, I said, what about the illustrations? I said, oh yeah, we love those too. And that's not very common, I found in my research process, to have a publishing house allow for a manuscript to come in with the illustration. So that was very special. And I consider myself creative in certain ways, like playing the piano and things like that. not in anything related to drawing. And so my husband really helped when I said, all right, this is what I'm thinking, and I'm trying to describe it. And then he would draw a sketch. I'm like, that's it. That's what I was talking about. So for us, for him knowing me so well, he just kind of seemed to pull that information out of my brain. And it was a very collaborative process. And little things were able to be added just from us having conversations at night on the couch. So it was pretty special.
That is awesome. My husband's pretty talented that way too. He has a beautiful ability to draw. My stickmen are fantastic, but not worthy of public consumption in such a way. So that's so cool that you that you and he did that together. I think that that's beautiful. And to your point, you're right. Not all publishers will pick up in that way. Like both of them, they'll pick up the manuscript and then they will work with you to assign an illustrator. But that's really cool that worked out where you already had that moving and you were able to show the sample too, to say, this is kind of what this looks like. Are you on board with all of that? That's really cool. Right. That is really cool. So when you were writing this book and coming through the edits, coming through the illustrations, how many paths did you have to go through? How many rounds of edits and iterations or rewrites did you have to do? Because, when you're writing something, no matter how big or small, you're still tweaking, you're still revamping, and you're looking for certain things. So what edits might look like in a novel or even go a different genre, it's going to feel different inside a picture book. So would you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So I spent a few months really writing. And when I got to the point where I felt, all right, I have a story, it's a frame, I know there has to be work, I reached out to our local library and talked to the children's librarian. I said, what do I do next? This is a new territory for me. What do I do? And he did talk about, having other people read it. And that's when the beta readers came into play. And it helped me to send it to only one or two people at a time. So you can kind of sort through those edits and changes and then send it to somebody else. Say, okay, now what do you think? When I was listening to a podcast about writing, one of the suggestions that they had was, before you submit it to a publisher, get it professionally edited. And I thought, okay, it's a picture book. It's like, 800, 900 words. And how many things can change? And I reached out to somebody and I was so thrilled. When I think of editing, I think so many of us think of, okay, well, you've got a period or you need a comma. But she really looked at it and said, could you tell me more about this? Or is there anything else you want to do to describe this character? And it just let me think of it a little bit differently. And it was after I had it professionally edited that it went on to being accepted. And then it goes through another round of edit. I mean, there's so many layers, but I'm thankful for all the edits that happened, because it really helped shape the story. And just every time it got better, which was great.
I love that you said that, because there are different types of edits that can happen. And to your point, it can easily be thought of as it's the grammar, it's the syntax, it's the technical elements versus the story or the style, or even the nuance of line, looking for voice and word choice. So I love that you mentioned that. And you're right that it's a piece that's going out. Give it the proper love that it needs so it can reach who it's supposed to reach. And that's where you were doing that. You were engaging different people with their areas of expertise to help you bring about a beautiful message, a beautiful story. So what was it like when so you've got the book, you're going through the publishing process, but now you're looking at getting the cover together. Okay. And in doing so, usually the front cover has a little bit more activity of some kind and the back is a little quieter. So what was it like figuring out what the front ought to be for this book?
It's so funny because, with a title like The Kindness Machine, you want to see it. What does it look like and what does it do? And I had an excellent piece of advice given to me by another author. And she said, well, what if you threw a sheet over the machine and you just let it peek out and you didn't quite see it? I'm like, I love that. And again, I had to reach out to Chad. I'm like, can we do that? And he draped this sheet over. And one of the activities that we did is we had students draw, what do you think's under the sheet? And they have not seen it. They didn't, had no idea, just the title, what's under there. And we had kindness robots. We had kindness. Someone made a kindness couch that you sit on the couch and become kind. So it made a very interactive cover that made you want to go, well, I got to pick that up and I have to see what it actually looks like. And then the back of that is just a little peek into the classroom, and very, very simple. But the front was kind of, it's a picture book. And whoever said you don't judge a book by its cover, I think that's wrong. I think we all do that. And when it is a picture book, you want to see that big title. You want to know exactly what you're reaching for. You want to have a little clue of what it is that's going to be behind that cover and in the pages. So that was really special.
I love that. Yeah, I think the cover is just precious. I mean, because I think that it really is, it catches your eye. It makes you go, like you said, hey, what's going on here? There's something else here. What else is happening? I need to know more. It piques your curiosity. And I would imagine that young readers are sitting there going, yeah, I bet I can guess what's under there, or I bet I can tell you what it is. I can draw it. And I love that, because that is, again, part of that love. That's encouraging reading. That's encouraging the joy of reading. But what else can happen from that? Because you've also now encouraged their curiosity and their creativity to say, well, draw that, just by even opening up that opportunity of what could they come up with. I think that's so sweet.
Well, and I think too, for educators, again, you have very precious minutes throughout your day. And if you have a book that you then can do something with, you can have it to either start a conversation or teach a concept, but then you can do more, whether it is a pre-activity like that, what do you think's under the sheet, or something that you say, all right, well, this is about kindness. Now write about a way or draw a way that you can be kind. Something like that. It takes it beyond just the book. So then it helps that the readers and the listeners take that to heart. And we know as adults, when we have the opportunity to read something or listen to something and then apply it to our life somehow, it's more meaningful.
I think that that's powerful. And to your point, I mean, I've seen when I've gone to do school visits before, when I can hear that the child is really engaged, like for instance, one of the things I will do is with Einstein and Moo is say, when I say Einstein, you say Moo, Einstein, you're like Moo, or it's just so cute because I can hear them getting excited, and I'm like, I can't hear you. And then they yell, and I'm like, oh, that was a little loud, but that's okay. We'll be happy with our loud indoor voices for that moment, because the true enthusiasm was there, but they're paying attention. And that's a big takeaway that you're looking for when you're writing a picture book, when you're connecting this book to this young reader. You're wanting it to plant seeds in a way that is encouraging and loving, and that you can feel it on the inside that they get inspired. So when you have shared this book with young readers now, what kind of response have you gotten?
I have to tell you, I've read it to my class twice, and it's so fun because you hope that the parts that you think are engaging and allow for response, you really hope that's going to happen. And it was hard for me to get through it the first time because it was emotional of, oh my gosh, they're doing this. And the machine has these two screens, and as the students in the book are pressing these different buttons, there's a message displayed on the large screen. And then there's a smaller screen that has an image that corresponds, so that even the littlest listeners that maybe can't read it yet, they get it. If the screen says smile and there's a smiley face, they know what that means. So as the kids in the book were pushing the buttons, I would say, what's the message? And by the end, they were just reading what's on the screen, and it allowed for that call and response. And again, it brings them into the story. And that was so special.
I think that that's absolutely beautiful. So how are you, if I may ask, how are you planning to help get the kindness machine into more classrooms?
I have an added bonus of being a teacher for sure. But I have a very supportive school who's going to help me get the books out to our families, and doing a few local events and library things that I know as a teacher, I'm at the library multiple times a month. And I'm trying to get the book into more libraries because books are expensive, but teachers need them. And to have that opportunity, I think too, my advice for anyone who does have a children's book out would definitely be reach out to some of those school districts and parent clubs, because a lot of times they do have some sort of funds that can be used for, even if it's 10 copies of your book that they can raffle off to families, and it's helping to spread that message. So I'm excited. Our school is doing a big reading week, and it's all about kindness and character strength, and it plays right into this. So it's pretty special.
That's cool. I think that's really, really creative. That's cool. One of the things that has also been instrumental has been, for me at least, was also to create like an incentive, if you will, by saying, if so many books are sold, I can do this type of thing. And then giving examples of how to help get so many books sold. Maybe you like create different ways to incentivize that inside to make it fun. But if you give the guidance, this is what I would love to be able to do, and here's some ways to get there, you're also showing that you're trying to be a part of that. And I think that has been super helpful too.
I love that. That's a great idea.
Thanks. So I know that you had mentioned to me before we got started here that you had said where if you had known that you needed to have like a website and so many other pieces to get this going, that was a different thing to learn. So would you share some recommendations that now that you've got it under your belt, and you are continuing to grow in this author business, what would you share to somebody who is pretty much getting started or needs some reminders about what they need to have?
I think being very open-minded, and understanding that you have so much space to learn was very helpful. I went into this by, like I said, starting with the librarian, and he said, here are some books that you need. And he, held them for me and said, read these, go through this. And if somebody would have said, you're going to have a website that you need to create, and you're going to be, more active on Instagram, and you're going to be sending email sequences, things like that. It's such a foreign world. And I think if you're open to learning, and that you reach out to other people, because some of the comments are, writing's a lonely business. It's a solitary activity, but I've been able to find my writing friends. And there's been some excellent conferences such as the Women in Publishing, and you really start making those connections, and you're learning and watching from other people. And regardless of the genre that you write, your end goal is the same. You want to put a book out that other people are going to love. And so having other people to ask those questions to, having other people that you're learning from, and then continuing to learn was very helpful. And one of the things that I loved, it's one of the best pieces of advice, is you don't have to do it all, but you have to do something. And so if you pick, all right, if Instagram's my thing and building a website this month, work on that and focus on that. You don't have to be on TikTok and Twitter, everything. You can if you're comfortable. But if you're like me, and that's very out of my box and my comfort zone, pick a few things and focus on that so you can do that really well.
Well said. Christina, this has been awesome. Where can people connect with you, and where can they get the Kindness Machine?
I would love for you to visit my website, which is ChristinaDankert.com. You can grab a copy of The Kindness Machine wherever books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, and follow me on Instagram, and we'll connect.
Thank you so much for being on the show. This has been so much fun.
Thank you so much for having me.